The election of Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost as Pope Leo XIV marked a historic moment for the Catholic Church. As the first American pope in the Church's 2,000-year history, his ascension to the papacy has sparked intense global interest and debate. One question dominates discussions among Catholics, theologians, and secular observers alike. Is Pope Leo XIV a liberal or a conservative? This article explores the complex ideological profile of Pope Leo XIV, examining his background, theological positions, pastoral priorities, and the broader context of his papacy to provide a nuanced answer. Far from fitting neatly into either category, Pope Leo XIV emerges as a pragmatic centrist leader whose priorities reflect both continuity with his predecessor Pope Francis and a cautious approach to navigating the Church's polarized landscape.
Before we delve in deeper, please take 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on similar videos. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Back to our discussion.
To understand Pope Leo XIV's ideological stance, we must first consider the context in which he was elected. The Catholic Church in 2025 is deeply divided, reflecting broader societal polarization. The pontificate of Pope Francis, 2013 to 2025, was a lightning rod for controversy. His emphasis on mercy, inclusion, and social justice, evident in encyclicals like Laudato Si on environmental stewardship and Amoris Laetitia on family life, earned him praise from progressives, but criticism from traditionalists who accused him of diluting doctrine. Issues such as communion for divorced and remarried Catholics, outreach to the LGBTQ+ community, and the role of women in the Church became flashpoints, with liberals pushing for reform and conservatives defending traditional teachings. The global political landscape adds another layer of complexity. In the United States, where Pope Leo XIV hails from, Catholicism has become increasingly politicized. Conservative Catholics often align with Republican priorities, emphasizing opposition to abortion and same-sex marriage, while liberal Catholics advocate for social justice issues like immigration reform and climate action, often aligning with Democratic platforms. This binary framework, however, is ill-suited to the Catholic Church, which operates on a global scale and a theological foundation that transcends secular ideologies. Pope Leo XIV's election by a conclave dominated by Francis-appointed cardinals, 110 of 138 electors, suggests a preference for continuity with Francis's pastoral vision. Yet, the absence of a clear majority for any ideological faction, liberals, soft liberals, moderates, soft conservatives, or conservatives, indicates that his papacy will require delicate consensus building. Against this backdrop, labeling Pope Leo XIV as either liberal or conservative oversimplifies his approach. Instead, his papacy is better understood through the lens of his background, priorities, and the challenges he faces. Who is Pope Leo XIV? A biographical overview. Born in Chicago, Illinois in 1955, Robert Francis Prevost joined the Augustinian order and was ordained a priest in 1982. His career spans pastoral work, missionary service in Peru, and high-level administrative roles in the Vatican. As a missionary, he worked among the poor in Latin America, an experience that shaped his commitment to social justice. In 2014, Pope Francis appointed him Bishop of Chiclayo, Peru, and in 2023, he became a cardinal and head of the dicastery for bishops, a powerful Vatican office responsible for selecting bishops worldwide. Prevost's American upbringing and global experience give him a unique perspective. The United States, with its diverse Catholic population and polarized political culture, has exposed him to the tensions between liberal and conservative Catholics. His time in Peru, meanwhile, immersed him in the liberation theology movement, which emphasizes the Church's role in addressing poverty and systemic injustice, ideas often associated with liberal Catholicism. Yet, as an Augustinian, Prevost is grounded in a theological tradition that values orthodoxy and contemplation, suggesting a balance between reformist zeal and doctrinal fidelity. Theological and pastoral priorities, a centrist approach. Pope Leo XIV's public statements and actions since his election provide clues to his ideological leanings. Ex-posts and early analysis describe him as a moderate or centrist, who aligns closely with Pope Francis's priorities, including synodality, a collaborative approach to church governance, outreach to the poor and migrants, and environmental concerns. However, he also holds traditional views on certain issues such as opposition to female deacons and a cautious approach to LGBTQ+ inclusion, complicating efforts to pigeonhole him as liberal or conservative. Let's examine his stance on key issues. 1. Social justice and the poor. Pope Leo XIV has consistently emphasized the Church's mission to serve the marginalized. In his first homily as Pope, he called for a church of the poor, for the poor, echoing Pope Francis and the liberation theology movement. His support for immigrants and refugees aligns with liberal priorities, particularly in the U.S., where immigration is a divisive issue. For example, he has advocated for humane treatment of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, a stance that resonates with progressive Catholics, but draws criticism from conservative hardliners. His environmental advocacy further aligns with progressive values. In line with Laudato Si', Pope Leo XIV has called climate change a moral imperative, urging Catholics to adopt sustainable practices. This stance has led some to label him the father of social justice, a nod to his namesake, Pope Leo XIII, whose 1891 encyclical Rerum Novarum championed workers' rights. However, his focus on social justice is rooted in Catholic social teaching, a tradition that transcends liberal conservative divides and has been upheld by popes of varying ideological stripes. Second, synodality and church governance. Pope Leo XIV's commitment to synodality, Francis's vision of a listening church that involves laity, clergy, and bishops in decision-making, suggests a progressive bent. The Synod on Synodality, 2021 to 2024, was a hallmark of Francis's papacy, and Leo XIV has pledged to continue this process, emphasizing dialogue and inclusion. This approach appeals to liberals who seek greater lay involvement and decentralization of authority. However, conservatives view synodality with suspicion, fearing it could undermine the Church's hierarchical structure or lead to doctrinal changes. Leo XIV's pragmatic leadership style, he is described as cautious and avoiding rigid positions, suggests he will seek to balance these tensions rather than push for radical reform. Third, LGBTQ+ issues. One of the most polarizing issues in the Church is its approach to the LGBTQ+ community. Pope Francis made headlines with gestures of outreach, such as his 2013 remark, "Who am I to judge?" and his support for civil unions, though not same-sex marriage. Pope Leo XIV has shown mild support for LGBTQIA+ inclusion, according to X posts, but his approach is more reserved than Francis's. He has affirmed the Church's teaching that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered, while calling for pastoral care and respect for LGBTQIA individuals. This stance disappoints liberals who hoped for bolder reforms, such as blessings for same-sex unions, but it aligns with conservative insistence on upholding traditional doctrine. Fourth, role of women in the Church. The question of women's roles, particularly the ordination of female deacons, is another fault line. Pope Leo XIV has explicitly opposed female deacons, a position that aligns with conservative theology, and disappoints progressives who see women's ordination as a step toward gender equality. However, he has supported expanding non-ordained roles for women, such as leadership in Vatican dicasteries and parish ministries, reflecting a moderate approach that seeks to include women without challenging the Church's male-only priesthood. Fifth, liturgical and doctrinal issues. Conservatives often prioritize liturgical tradition and doctrinal clarity, while liberals advocate for flexibility and adaptation to modern contexts. Pope Leo XIV has not signaled a major shift in liturgical practice, maintaining the post-Vatican II Novus Ordo Mass as the norm, while allowing limited use of the traditional Latin Mass, a compromise that mirrors Francis's approach. His theological writings emphasize continuity with the magisterium, the Church's teaching authority, suggesting a conservative instinct to preserve doctrine. Yet, his pastoral emphasis on mercy and accompaniment, prioritizing people's lived experiences over rigid application of rules, resonates with liberal Catholics. Comparing Pope Leo XIV to his namesakes, the choice of the name Leo XIV invites comparisons to previous popes named Leo, particularly Leo XIII, 1878 to 1903, and Leo X, 1513 to 1521, whose legacies offer insights into the current pope's ideological profile. Pope Leo XIII, the social justice pope. Pope Leo XIII is best known for Rerum Novarum, which addressed the plight of workers during the Industrial Revolution, condemning both socialism and unbridled capitalism. His pontificate blended progressive social reforms with conservative theological principles. He rejected secular liberalism and rationalism, emphasizing the Church's role as the guardian of truth, but his diplomatic outreach to modern governments and support for scientific progress showed openness to the modern world. Pope Leo XIV's focus on social justice, environmentalism, and the poor mirrors Leo XIII's legacy. Both popes navigate a middle path, advocating for systemic change while upholding traditional doctrine. However, Leo XIII faced a less polarized church, and his encyclicals were less contentious than the issues Leo XIV must address, such as LGBTQ+ inclusion and women's roles. Pope Leo X, the Renaissance Pope. Pope Leo X, a member of the Medici family, is remembered for his patronage of the arts and his failure to address the Protestant Reformation, which began under his watch. His lavish spending and sale of indulgences sparked Martin Luther's 95 Theses, contributing to the Church's division. While not impious, he was devout in his personal practices. Leo XII's worldliness and political entanglements earned him a reputation as a flawed leader. Pope Leo XIV bears little resemblance to Leo X. His modest lifestyle and focus on pastoral care contrast sharply with Leo X's extravagance. However, Leo X's failure to address emerging challenges serves as a cautionary tale for Leo XIV, who must navigate the Church's internal divisions and external pressures, such as declining membership in Europe and growth in Africa and Asia. The American factor. Does nationality shape ideology? As the first American Pope, Leo XIV's nationality invites speculation about its influence on his ideology. The U.S. Catholic Church is a microcosm of global tensions, with liberal dioceses, e.g. Chicago, under Cardinal Blase Kupik, emphasizing social justice, and conservative ones, e.g. Lincoln, Nebraska, prioritizing traditional liturgy and doctrine. Prevost's Chicago roots and Vatican experience suggest he is attuned to both perspectives. Critics argue that an American pope risks importing U.S. political categories, liberal versus conservative, into the universal church. However, Prevost's global experience, particularly in Latin America, may counteract this tendency. His ability to bridge cultural divides will be crucial, especially as the Church's center of gravity shifts to the global South, where African and Asian cardinals often lean conservative on moral issues but progressive on economic justice. Challenges and expectations. Navigating a divided church. Pope Leo XIV faces formidable challenges that will test his ideological balance. Healing internal divisions. The Church's liberal-conservative divide is stark, with traditionalists like Cardinal Robert Sarah advocating for doctrinal rigor and progressives like Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich pushing for reforms. Leo XIV's centrist approach risks alienating both sides unless he can foster dialogue through synodality. Engaging the global South, with Christianity declining in Europe but growing in Africa and Asia, Leo XIV must address the priorities of these regions, where conservative moral stances often coexist with progressive economic views. His experience in Peru may help, but his American background could be a liability if perceived as Western-centric. Responding to secular pressures. Issues like climate change, gender ideology, and secularism require a delicate balance. Leo XIV's environmental advocacy aligns with secular progressives, but his opposition to gender ideology and female deacons may strain relations with liberal governments and media. Maintaining doctrinal clarity. Conservatives fear that synodality and inclusivity could erode doctrine, while liberals hope for greater flexibility. Leo XIV's challenge is to uphold the magisterium while making the Church welcoming to diverse populations. Is Pope Leo XIV liberal or conservative? The evidence suggests that Pope Leo XIV defies simple categorization. His commitment to social justice, synodality, and environmentalism aligns with liberal priorities, while his opposition to female deacons and cautious approach to LGBTQ+ issues reflects conservative instincts. Ex-posts describe him as a centrist or pragmatic leader who blends progressive and traditional elements, a characterization supported by his alignment with Pope Francis's pastoral vision. Rather than liberal or conservative, Pope Leo XIV is better described as a pastoral pragmatist. His priorities, serving the poor, fostering dialogue, and addressing global challenges, reflect a desire to unite a fractured church and engage a changing world. Like Pope Leo XIII, he seeks to apply timeless Catholic principles to modern problems, balancing reform with tradition. His American background and global experience equip him to navigate these tensions, but his success will depend on his ability to build consensus and avoid the pitfalls of polarization. Conclusion: a pope for a complex age. Pope Leo XIV's papacy is a microcosm of the Catholic Church's broader struggle to remain relevant in a divided world. His election as the first American pope is a historic milestone, but it is his ability to transcend ideological labels that will define his legacy. By prioritizing the poor, embracing synodality, and upholding doctrine with pastoral sensitivity, he charts a middle path that resists the binary of liberal versus conservative. As the Church navigates declining membership in the West, growth in the global South, and pressures from secular society, Pope Leo XIV's pragmatic leadership offers hope for unity and renewal. In the words of one ex-user, Leo, the father of social justice, may yet prove to be a pope for all Catholics, one who, like his namesake, Leo XIII, speaks to the challenges of his time with wisdom and compassion. Only time will reveal the full scope of his impact, but for now, Pope Leo XIV stands as a bridge between tradition and progress, conservatism and reform, in a church and world desperately in need of both.